Now I have posting of the colors and Pledge of Allegiance by Boy Scout Troop 451. Please stand.
Color guard, advance. Closing colors. Please put your hand over your heart and follow me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We welcome you to Calvert County Board of Education Candidates Forum. All candidates run as nonpartisan for 2 at-large positions on the Calvert County Board of Education. Now, this forum is live and is also being broadcast by the Calvert Broadcast. The Calvert County Government YouTube channel will be broadcast on, as well as Comcast Channel 1070 HD. Forums are a platform for the candidates to share their positions so that you, the voter, may know where your candidates stand on the issues most important to you. I'm Malcolm Funn, a member of the Community Mediation Center for Calvert County. My co-moderator is Dave Dotson from across the river, St. Mary's County. We welcome him. Welcome.
Nice to have you.
The timers, Joan Anderson, a member of the Community Mediation Center of Calvert County, sitting at the middle table, and Katie Libbs, also the organizer of tonight's forum. So Katie, would you like to say a few words as to how this got started? Just a few.
I'm not great with public speaking, but I wanted to host a platform where the candidates could be heard and the community could ask questions, and both of them could hear each other without the noise of everyone around us. I don't know how else to say it. So I hope that, I'm grateful to all of you who showed up. Thank you for that. To have all 9 of you here is just awesome. And I am grateful to all of you for coming virtually and physically as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Katie. We'd like to thank the Southern Community Center, its Recreation Director, Paul Lundberg, and staff for their assistance and use of the facilities. And again, we want to thank Boy Scout Troop 451 from St. Paul United Methodist Church in Lusby, Maryland. And to the candidates, the questions that you will be asked tonight are verbatim from those previously submitted. There has been no editing. And we will now, I've got to do the forum ground rules. In your program, you have the agenda, and you please let me go over the forum ground rules so that everybody can be on the same page. Please turn off all cell phones and electronic devices. I see Cal reaching in his pocket to turn his off. Thank you, Cal.
You're welcome, sir.
Your participation in this forum constitutes acknowledgement you cannot use, rebroadcast, or print forum content. No audience photographs or recordings during the forum. This is a forum, not a debate. The candidates will remain behind the table. They may stand or remain seated when answering a question or making a statement. Each candidate must answer the question posed, but may choose to use a portion of their allotted time to respond to a previous question. The first respondent to each question and the closing statement will rotate based on a predetermined random speaking sequence. We have 2 moderators. I will ask the odd number of questions, and my co-moderator Dave will ask the even numbered questions. You don't know what's odd and even, so just go with the flow, okay? Each candidate will be allowed 90-second introduction, 90 seconds to answer each question, and 90 seconds for a closing statement. For those of you that may be second challenge, that's 1.5 minutes. The timekeeper will hold up a sign when 30 seconds remain. Can you see that sign? Oh, good, because I can't.
It's just a red,
Okay.
you guys will get it.
Since I'm not speaking, I don't need to see it. Okay. A bell will ring when your time is up. Please end the sentence and stop speaking. There will be no time allotted for rebuttals. The audience will please refrain from applauding or in other ways demonstrating support or non-support for a candidate. Displays of campaign paraphernalia, buttons, T-shirts, signs, or anything that supports a particular candidate are not permitted in the auditorium. The moderator may repeat the question if asked, and the candidates will not interrupt one another and refrain from personal attacks. Now, we will start by having each candidate give 90 seconds of an opening statement, and we will start at the end and come this way.
Excuse me. Before we can start, there's some ladies over here with their cell phones recording. We can't start with that.
Is somebody recording? You have to put that down. There's no recording of this event. If you're recording, you have to leave.
All of this is being recorded by the channels, and it's going to be on the YouTube channel, so it can all be retrieved later. But we can't proceed as long as cell phones are out and being recorded. So we'll wait until everybody get those put away and out of sight.
Thank you. That's what 4 hours are better than 2. You can see that one. Yeah. Thank you. Okay. Okay, Mr. Villanova, if you would give a 90-second intro and come right down the line.
Good evening. Is it mic on? Yeah, there we go. Good evening. My name is Damian Villanova, born and raised in Baltimore, Maryland, by my parents, Drs. Barry and Margot Young. They're educators from the Baltimore City Public School System. I graduated in '93, went on to join the Marine Corps in '95, did 21 years honorably in the Marine Corps as a staff non-commissioned officer, and traveled over 35 countries. I do have 2 twin-year-old kids in the schools in Calvert County Public School System, and I have 1 in Q, a 3-year-old, for backup. So I do have some skin in the game here. I'm running for Board of Education at large because I do have kids. I have kids, and I care about what they're being taught. I care about them, what they're being taught, how they're being taught, and how to respect other people and other decisions people choose in their lifestyle. I know there's a couple things that we can only control. One thing that I do want to pinpoint is procedures, processes, and the budget. I feel as though those 2 topics are very near and dear to my heart, and I think those are very near and dear to parents' hearts, and even the taxpayers here if you don't have kids in the school system. Because schools, they have a coalition that is equal to the property value. So keeping the school system, Calvert County, we moved here for that reason, because the awesome schools they have here, and I want to make sure that they stay and maintain an awesome standard. Thank you.
No pressure. So, good evening. My name is Jana Post, and I too am running for school board. I have 5 kids, one of which who has graduated from Calvert County Public Schools. And no pressure, but I was born and raised in Calvert County. And I graduated from a Calvert County Public School high school. 4 children, 1 in Huntingtown High School, and then 3 in middle school. So I really decided to run based on just some interaction and some different experiences and things that I learned when virtual learning came about. There are 3 big things that the Board of Education can do, and I am still learning, but one of which is, budget and oversight and budget. 2 is approving policies and implementing policies and procedures that can work. And lastly, just understand, I'm sorry, I'm distracted. Somebody's whispering, I'm sorry, I'm easily distracted. So understanding, understanding all of the things that can happen. So part of why I'm running, I want to make sure that there's information access available for victims, not just students who are troubled with disciplinary action, but also kids that seem to be having some issues. I want to make sure that the bullying policies, all of those things are reviewed, and that there are rights for all students that are in schools, including things like special education, all the resources that are available. Thank you.
My name is Tracy Mcguire, and I live in Huntingtown. I am the parent of 2 children who attended Calvert County Public Schools from kindergarten through high school graduation. In 1999, I became a stay-at-home mom when my oldest son was 6 years old. Shortly after stepping away from my career, I began volunteering in the community, and I volunteered in school classrooms. I was a volunteer in the school office. I was elected president of the Huntingtown Elementary School PTA. I served on the Northern Middle School Executive Board for their PTA. I was elected president of the Calvert County Council of PTAs. I was the catechist in my church. I was the Cub Scout treasurer, and then the Boy Scout treasurer, and then the Cub Scout treasurer again. And then I was elected to the school board, where I served from 2008 to 2020. I came to my decision to run for school board a 4th time because I believe that my experience and knowledge can serve the community in these moments as we face the challenges of teacher shortages, student learning and well-being, and meaningful community engagement. I ask for your vote on July 19th. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Joe Marcio. Obviously, I'm also running for the school board, otherwise I wouldn't be up here. Grew up in Northeast Ohio. Been in Maryland since 2005, moved to Calvert County back in 2014. Mainly the reason we decided to move down here was because of how great the schools were and the reputation of all the schools. Decided to start running for school board as distance learning came into effect, and I watched my own child, who's always excelled at school, struggle because of distance learning. And then getting a peek into some of the things that were involved in that, and some of the policies that came as far as how long it took to lift the mask mandate and things of that nature. So I decided to get involved and try to bring some sanity and some common sense back to things. I've got 2 young boys. I've got a 10-year-old who's at St. Leonard Elementary School, and I've got a 3-year-old who, as Damon said, I got one in the hopper, one in the chute, ready to go afterwards. So with all that, I'm running for Board of Education. I ask for you guys to vote on the 19th as well.
Good evening. My name is Camille Khaleesi, formerly Camille Miller. You may be familiar with my name as I ran for the board in 2020. I'm a parent of 4 ranging in age from elementary to high school in the county, also raised in Calvert County. I'm a special needs parent and advocate, member of the Special Education Citizens Advisory Council, the Citizens Advisory Council, an educator at the collegiate level for University of Maryland, and a 20-year human resources and strategic operations professional. My focus areas for being on the board are to support the incoming superintendent and hold him accountable to any projected outcomes and actions, support teachers so that they can be at their most optimal, connect with parents and students to be aware of their concerns and collaborate on best ways to solution issues, and develop and implement strategies to communicate and provide further clarity between the board and the community. I'm not running for the board as a reaction to any one issue or action that I disagree with. Rather, I'm running to have impact system-wide in ensuring that marginalized groups are given proper attention in decision-making, thus improving outcomes for all. I provide strategic input daily to influence the policies, practices, and culture within my workplace, and have a proven record of infusing foundational change in the long term with consistent wins in the short term. I hope that I can win your vote in July.
Already?
Yep, your turn.
Okay. The description in the flyer is pretty much sums me up, so I'm going to read it. So my name is Christina Hall, but many of you know me as Tina Allison. That was my maiden name growing up in Calvert County. My husband and I live in Huntingtown with our 5 children. Having lived in Calvert County most of my life, I even attended the same elementary school that my younger 3 children currently attend. While I might be the least politically experienced candidate, I have an abundance of hands-on experience and passion. I have been involved heavily in my 5 children's schools as they've attended more than 10 different schools for various regional programs with within special ed and not within the special ed. While raising multiple special needs children, I have also worked closely with the special education department for nearly 10 years. Because of this, I have developed a unique perspective. My goals include improving the overall communications within the system and expanding and clarifying information between parents and the schools so that all parents are better able to be more involved in the decision-making process for their students. More classroom options for those students that don't fit in the most restrictive environment or the least restrictive environment are a part of the blueprint for Maryland's future. That sums me up.
Hi, my name is Lisa Grenis. I'm a Calvert County resident, parent, and former teacher. I put my children through our school system like many of you. In fact, I moved here for our school system. And when my children graduated, I can tell you I was not disappointed. They had an outstanding education due to the dedication and passion of the teachers here in Calvert County. I cannot praise them highly enough for everything they do. I'm running for a seat on the board to use my experience to advocate for decisions and policies in the best interest of students while keeping parents involved and informed. I believe parental boundaries must be respected in the classroom. We need a curriculum with transparency so parents are fully aware of what their children are learning. My goal is to regain our county's reputation for being the high-performing, outstanding school system that it's known for. This is not possible without openly communicating and restoring the trust between all parties. As a member of your school board, I want to open the lines of communication and be a catalyst for unity. My goal is to bring back the values of listening and understanding. The one thing I'd like to add, because my time is coming up, I am running for one reason, and that is for our students, our children.
All right. So, hi, my name is Scott Fowler. Obviously, also running for school board. I grew up in this area. I'm actually a product of the Calvert County school system. I feel like they've done a very tremendous job. I mean, I'm pretty awesome. But I went to Mount Harmony Elementary School, on to Northern Middle, and graduated from Northern High School. I decided to run for school board mainly because I think everybody's seen what's been going on in the national media and in other school systems around the area. When I started to learn that some of the practices that are occurring in other school systems were also occurring in my own backyard, I decided that I couldn't sit back and do nothing. I feel like a lot of people, myself included, enjoy complaining about things, but we don't always step up and try to make a difference. So the reason I'm running is because I want to try to allow the children in the community to have the same kind of education I had growing up. And I would like that opportunity to help them with. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Scott Devine. Excuse me, I'm a retired captain, served 23 years. I specialize in corrections. I live in Huntingtown, Maryland, and I'm married. Today's my 19th year anniversary. That's why I'm last minute plans. I have two children that attend the school system. My oldest is a junior in Huntingtown, and my youngest is in middle school at Plum Point Middle. I have a vested interest, in the school system as my kids, attend the school, and they have been going since kindergarten. I've seen a decline in our school system since the hiring of Superintendent Daniel Curry and the disastrous COVID-19 decisions that were voted on and enacted by the current board, which resulted in mental health issues with the students, decline in basic education, substance and drug abuse within the school system. The drug problem in our school system is mass, and the lack of security in our school system jeopardizes the safety of staff and students. I'm in favor of transparency of curriculum, removal of political influence from the educational platform, building stronger parent-teacher relationships, increasing the number of safety advocates. All high schools have 2, they should have 4. And if safety advocates properly do their jobs, engage the students and be proactive, the drug use, the bullying, everything that goes on in school systems. I have daughters, they talk to me, so I know what goes on in the school systems, in the high schools. In addition to that, you need to increase the number of drug intervention counselors because drug use is high, and also counselors because the students being locked down due to COVID, wearing masks and virtual learning has a detrimental effect on their mental health.
I'm sorry, your time is up, it's expired.
Did she hold
Yes,
it?
the bell rang.
Okay, thank you. I didn't see it.
No, it's a bell,
Oh,
a
okay.
chime.
Sorry.
Appreciate that.
Thank you for your opening comments, candidates. And Scott, you will start first, and we'll go down the line. The first question is this. In your opinion, what is the most pressing need within the Calvert County Public School system at this time?
The most pressing need at this time is safety in the schools. As I said before, there's drug use in our schools, there's drug use in middle schools. And with safety advocates, it goes counselors for mental health and drug intervention. Repeat that question again.
In your opinion, what is the most pressing need within the Calvert County Public School system at this time?
Yeah, like I said, pressing time is security. All the stuff that's going on in the school system, fights, bullying, drugs, and mental health counselors. Like I said, COVID affected these kids mentally, and drug use picked up. That's my answer.
Okay, thank you. Scott Fowler?
I would say the most pressing need in the current, for the school system currently would be staffing. I feel like that's kind of a routine answer, but I feel like it's one that is always going to be a persistent problem. As the county grows, we need more teachers, but not only just more teachers, we need more administrative assistants, we need more support staff, we need all of the infrastructure around the teachers for them to do their jobs adequately. If we can properly staff the school itself and have enough of all of the above, with the classroom sizes going down, the teacher ratio is getting better, I feel like the education the students will get will be will be much, much better. So yeah, that would be my answer.
Okay. Let me remind you, you don't have to look at me in answering the question. You should look at the audience. Those are the ones that you're talking to.
It's just the 4 seconds.
I know, but I can hear you. And you don't have to, if you've given your answer, you don't have to continue to talk to fill out the time. Don't feel, obligated to use the full 90 seconds. I'm sorry. Lisa?
I'd like to also address the teacher shortage. If you want to keep the best teachers and support staff and recruit high-quality staff, we need to treat them like they are the best. Few teachers leave in an environment where they feel valued, supported, appreciated, and treated like professionals. Teachers enter the profession to have a positive impact on children. When they feel they are failing, it pushes them out even faster. It's clear that the way we've done business is no longer working, and we need to think education and create something better. Teachers and support staff are drowning in unnecessary documentation requirements, meetings, and curriculum. They need the time and resources necessary to prepare for instruction. Professional development and in-services days need to be revamped. We can't pay teachers their full value, but their time is of equal value. We can't afford to offer more flexibility to teachers to use these days for classroom management tasks. Administrators need to take a hard look at their role in the teacher shortage as well. Discipline, or lack of, is a major issue in this county. Children sent to the office for behavior issues are being sent back to the classroom, sometimes with lollipops and other treats. We have principals in this county who believe that it's in the best interest of,
Okay, thank you. Tina?
Can you repeat the question, please?
Sure. In your opinion, what is the most pressing need within Calvert County Public School System at this time?
Okay. I think the needs of every child should be thought about and understand that there's no one-size-fits-all model in education because no one learns the same. I think that the different classroom options need to be available for the children who are unable to fit in that one-size-fits-all model. As a parent of 3 special needs kids, 2 of which have multiple disabilities. One has mental health disorder and the other one has physical and cognitive delays. They don't fit in Gen Ed. And because they're being put in Gen Ed, they are being sent to the office because of their behaviors, and their behaviors are happening because of the environment that they are put in. It is inappropriate. So I also think the pandemic affected everyone in many different ways, and the resources and facilities are still behind in playing catch up. I have realized the social isolation of children and adults required to stay at home and continued social distancing, even now for some, for any length of time affects each individual much differently. Implementing groups and clubs in school, after school, and getting back to meetings created by school staff or administration, which also requires administration across the county to assist uniting people together to create bonds, programs who deliver, okay, I'll stop.
Thank you. Camille?
With regards to what I feel is the most pressing need, I would believe it's the retention of our current teachers. Recruiting is important. There's other things that are important, but with the teachers being the largest part of the population within the Calvert County Public School System, if we don't find a way to keep the ones that we have, especially the experienced ones, the amount of cost and energy and time and training that needs to go into identifying new ones when we already know there's a shortage throughout the country, the impact that that will have to students as they deal with the substitute situation, like everything reverberates out from the teachers. And so I feel like the most pressing need is to make sure that the teachers are supported in classrooms, that their classroom sizes are manageable, that they have the appropriate other level staff, inclusive of counselors, inclusive of aides and whatnot, so that they can focus on what they were educated to do, which is teach. I also have a special needs child, and unfortunately, while I've loved some of the teachers that my student has had, they're not trained to be everything. I'm trained to be a generalist in human resources, but I still can't go deeper and focus on certain areas when that's someone else's specialty to attend to. So teachers need to be able to do what is on their prescriptive list of duties to do and have support in other areas. And so, again, I feel like the most pressing need for the school system is supporting the teachers.
Thank you. Joseph?
Risk of sounding like a broken record, I also think one of the most pressing needs is our staff, teachers and the support staff. We need to retain them. We need to make sure they feel valued. We need to give them the tools for them to do their job and not be burdened with cumbersome paperwork or other tasks. We need to let them teach and focus solely on teaching, take some of those other responsibilities off of them. And one of the ways that can help to do that, and as well as increasing the teachers so we can reduce the student size in the classroom, is also within taking a little bit better look at the budget, being a little more refined in it, finding places where we can shave it, and being a little more creative. One thing I left about my intro, I'm a division manager for a general contractor specialized in the heavy utility work. Yearly basis, manage about $15 million worth of work. So I'm very adept at managing things within a budget and figuring out how all the pieces go together and squeezing things to where they need to be. So I believe there's some things we can squeeze out of the budget from where they are versus just requesting more money every time. That way when we're requesting more money, we can make even bigger impacts than what we already have. So I agree with most everybody up here with keeping our teachers, supporting our teachers, and we're finding new ones is the most pressing need.
Thank you. Tracy?
So I think the most pressing needs are the teacher shortage and student learning and well-being. They're connected. The pandemic did so much damage. While we talk about these things, one of the things I like to talk about is a world-class school system. That's what I think we need, a world-class school system where students belong. They know they belong. The school is theirs too. And they're surrounded by adults who support them and have confidence in them. and who encourage them to do their best academically and socially. A world-class school system is a place where teachers want to teach. They want to teach because they have professional autonomy, they're well compensated, they have the support of their principal and administrators, and they can focus their time on teaching and meeting students' needs. A world-class school system is a school system where the administration sustains school operations that are compliant with all federal, state, and local laws, and that are frictionlessly support students and staff. If you spend time in school, you know there can be friction. We need frictionless support for students and staff. And I think if we can do those things, we can recover from the pandemic and help students and attract teachers.
Thank you.
I yield back my time.
Thank you. Jana?
While I can't disagree with any of my counterparts here, I will say I think that the most pressing issue is measuring the fiscal impact of Kerwin Commission. That, some of you may know, as the Maryland Blueprint. It is going to cause great impacts on our students, our teachers, our resources in this county, as well as our county government. So I think at this point, while I do agree with all of those statements, it is going to be the biggest impact that we have to this county and all of the taxpayers. It will essentially result in larger class sizes and less resources if we don't take a deep dive into all and really generally understand what Kerwin means, what it means to the impact of the resources, what it means to the teachers, what it means to the students, and what it means to the taxpayers of this county. That's it.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Damien?
So, what is the most pressing need for the Calvert County schools? I think budget is. Without budget, without knowing how you can get that money to fund the things that the public school system needs, I believe a relationship with the commissioners is important. I believe that having a relationship, a good working professional relationship with the commissioners is important because they're the ones that hold the purse strings for the most part. I am a godfather of a 6-year-old autism kid, and I believe that kids with different learning needs is important. Right now, the current ratio is 1 to 35, and I think that's a bit too big. My parents, again, were educators in the school system, and I think talking with my mom, the ratio is really too big. There's no way in the world that one teacher can manage 35 students in a classroom. More importantly, if you have a child that has different learning needs, that's going to be another distraction, if you will. So budgeting means that you bring in teachers and you bring in these assistants. More importantly, you train them correctly. You get them the proper training they need so they can be effective. And with that, I also believe that, once you train them up and the teachers and the assistants, they now know how to manage those things. That way it doesn't have to be a complete evacuation in the classroom, causing a bigger distraction within the classroom, and learning can continue to go on. Those are my thoughts as far as budgeting and how it is important and effectiveness that he'll have with the county.
Thank you. Question number 2, we'll start with Scott Fowler. Please discuss how you will support teachers to feel supported and valued in their jobs.
So in order to make teachers feel supported, I feel like they need to be empowered to make the decisions and give the grades that the students have earned without repercussions, like in a sense, additional work. The idea that the teachers are basically kind of pushed into offering remedial help for the students who have failed without really being, that should be the choice of the teacher to do. Because by having this kind of situation, teachers are almost encouraged to push kids through the system, like ones that may or may not have necessarily earned the grades to do so. And by just forcing kids through, it's really going to inhibit their long-term future once they get out of school. Like if a student has earned a failing grade, they should receive a failing grade. Repeating a grade is not the worst thing in the world. I myself repeated a grade. It happens, Like, it's not, and you move on and you learn from it. But the worst thing you can do is learn that there's no repercussions for the effort that you've put in. So, yes, that would be how I think they should.
Thank you.
support. Yep.
Lisa?
The answer is quite simple. Listen to them. The teachers know what is working and what is not, but are rarely asked. We have this top-heavy model where decisions are being made by superintendents and Board of Ed administration and supervisors, and then it tunnels down to school administrators, teachers, and then the student. If we could simply reverse that, where the students were at the top and they were our main priority, which is what teachers want. We simply want to teach to all children to meet their needs. And the teachers know what's not working. I remember a couple years ago, they had a roundtable talk. I was probably never more excited to attend something than this. They wanted to know what was working and what was not working in reading, reading and history, and then they had a second session for science and math. What do you need? What don't you have? They were being audited for, well, not audited. They were having a company come in to see where the holes and gaps were. I thought it was the most powerful thing in the world. Then COVID hit and it disappeared.
Thank you. Tina?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
Yes.
She's so distracting. She's so distracting.
Please discuss how you will support teachers to feel supported and valued in their jobs.
Okay. One suggestion is recruiting college students by offering incentives or sign-up bonuses, similar to the military. Also value the current staff by providing more training that is available for their time, like different times. So like it's not only available to take out from the students to go to a program or some other training, because I've seen that a lot. You train the teachers and then they have to miss class to teach the students to get more training. So increase morale by recognizing teachers and staff by their own peers. It's worked in other models in other states fairly well. And what better way to boost your confidence as a teacher than to have your coworkers or whatever go, oh, you did a great job. You are doing well. Another suggestion is reducing stress on administration and staff to meet some students' needs that don't fit the one-size-fits-all model, and send those students out of county or to a different placement so that it de-stresses those teachers, because there are some teachers that just get so overwhelmed, like first-year teachers. I have experienced it as a parent with a first-year teacher. You have special needs students. Can I finish the sentence? Can I finish my sentence?
Please finish your
Okay.
sentence.
I have a special needs son who was put with a first-year teacher, which I love the first-year teacher, and she is not to blame, and the staff is not to blame. But he is not successful. I know, he is not successful in this classroom, and it adds stress to everyone. There
Thank
go.
you.
It was a run-on sentence, I'm sorry. My bad.
Camille?
I think the teachers can best be supported by, 1, listening to them, 2, seeking out information from those you haven't heard from, because the majority does not always carry what the thoughts are. So we need to make sure that we hear from everyone in the best way that we can. Make sure that we motivate teachers based on what is motivating to them. We always talk about how students should be taught as individuals and that plans should be made for what works best for them. Well, the same works for the management-employer construct. They need to be motivated. You need to ask them what motivated them and then motivate them based on what they say is most motivating to them. I think we need to manage and control what they don't have the space and energy to do, and that would be with administration and the board and other entities that can do things while the teachers are actively teaching, and making sure that we put strong administrators in place that can create or manifest the type of cultures that teachers want to work under. Because again, we're not going to retain them if they're not getting support from the top down within their school buildings, independent of what the entire system is doing. Most people are impacted by what is right in front of them, the exact school that they're in, and the administrators that they deal with. And lastly, make sure that we're partnering on solutions with them. Make sure that we're socializing ideas with teachers and garnering their buy-in and support rather than imposing things on them that they then have to quickly adjust and implement. If they were part of the process of making the decision to put the thing in place, had some buy-in into it, then they can help to socialize it amongst their peers.
Thank you. Joseph.
So, as kind of been already mentioned, the biggest thing is talking to them, but also listening to them. And that's not simply sending out an email and getting some feedback, or sending out a survey or Google Sheet and getting some feedback. You need to actually go out, talk to the teachers in the schools, observe their classrooms, sit in, see what they're going through, and get their input on how what can be done to improve their day-to-day. And to do that, you're going to also need to free up some budget money, because we need to get away from where teachers have to go spend their own money and buy items for their classroom that they need. So we need to do that from a budget standpoint. That'll help support them. But the biggest thing is just talking to them, getting their buy-in, and finding solutions from the teachers. They are professional educators. They know what can work best and how to best approach things. So we need to listen to them and get their input and enact policies based on that, but also figure out how to make those work within the framework of what comes down from the mandates of the Maryland State Department of Education, because there are some handcuffs in that regard. But if we do talk to them, we can find some creative ways to work together and overcome those challenges and support them so they feel heard.
Thank you. Tracy.
So as we discussed earlier, there's a teacher shortage. We need more teachers. That would go a long way toward helping teachers. But they also need help because students come to school as they are, not as we want them to be. Many students arrive rested and in good health, with a good breakfast, ready to learn, and at grade level. But many other students arrive in school without that, and burdened with fear and anxiety and anger. And so when we talk about how we address those needs, that has to be supporting the classroom. It has to come from student services, through school psychologists and guidance counselors and all these other roles that are not in the classroom, but we need that in our school system so that the teachers are presented in their classroom with students who are ready to learn. And I think that's the best thing we can do to support teachers, and I yield back my time.
Thank you. Jana?
So the role of a Board of Education member, I was distracted on my intro, but is to approve policy, approve budget, and to essentially hire or fire a supervisor, superintendent, right? So all of these things are great, and one of the things that I think we can do to support teachers and make them feel supported is to make sure that the superintendent has a great relationship with his teachers. And I think one of the ways that we can do that is to make them feel safe in the classrooms. A lot of things that I hear, in fact, I'm going to miss my 90 seconds, but before COVID, there was an incident, and teachers went with the union, and they went in protest, if you will, to the Board of Education, and somehow in support, my mom wore a red t-shirt and wound up in that same classroom, or in the same boardroom with all the teachers in support of the teachers. She didn't even know why she was there, what she was doing, but she was fighting with the teachers. So I just remember that, it was kind of funny, but I do remember that, and I think that's the biggest thing, is that teachers really need to feel safe, and they need to feel heard as well. Thank you.
Thank you. And before we continue, the gentleman that just walked up front here, I don't know if you've been here the entire time, but we've asked everyone to put their cell phones away and to not be recording, because we have the public access is recording all of this. It'll be available on the YouTube. Thank you. Damien.
Supporting the teachers supporting teachers in their job is important. Here's the thing. Training is so important. I believe that having a professional day is not a bad thing. In the Marine Corps, 21 years in the Marine Corps, training was one big thing that we did religiously. And the only thing, and one thing I took away from that is with that training, it was almost a knee-jerk reaction. It was nothing that we had to think about for the next step because we trained so much on that. So I believe training is definitely a good tool that we can use to help out the teachers and support them. Another thing is that I'm a government employee, and one thing that I cannot stand is some of the government employees that work with systems out there that you all probably can't stand is that when they push this system onto you, whatever it may be, DTS or some type of travel build out, whatever, they always have some outside entity create this build. And one thing as a user, you always say, how do you do this? And how do you do this? And why does this work? And it doesn't work because some outside entity created it. One thing that I think is we should get their input, get their buy-in. Because if the teachers don't buy into the training, if the teachers don't buy into how they can make how the administrators or the school system can make that teacher function that much better and be more effective as far as teaching and things of that nature, they're going to resist. As human beings, our natural thing is to resist. So we train the teachers, we get their buy-in, make sure they understand. Not only that they understand, but we listen to their complaints and understand what they want. Then I think that would be a great way how we can support our teachers.
Thank you. And Scott Devine.
To support teachers, make them feel valued, one of my favors, before I didn't have time to say, teachers pay. Pay is number one. Teachers do a lot of stuff not getting paid for. They miss back COLAs, so they need to judge their wages for retirement purposes retro. Second, you need to listen to the teachers. You need to implement their ideas. Us as school board members work for the superintendent. So when the teachers have ideas they want implemented, we work with the superintendent, which will funnel down to the administration. Then you have to support the teachers by, like I said, it starts at the top with the superintendent. If you have these disruptive kids that are create a distracted atmosphere where the teachers can't do their job, it's frustrated and morale's broken. It starts at the top. It's accountability. Hold the superintendent accountable, then who will hold the administrators accountable. Then you have to recognize the teachers for their hard work. And the bottom line is teachers where rubber meets the road. These teachers are educating our kids to prepare for the future. And teachers are, they're essential personnel. You have to treat them with dignity and respect. You have to support them. It's all about the students. And if you don't support the teachers, the students are going to fail.
Thank you.
Thank you. This third question, Lisa, we start with you and go down and come back. Will you remove the 10-person limit, vote to change Board of Education meeting start times after 6 p.m., and engage in Q&A format with constituents via public meetings?
I would vote to remove the 10-person minimum. I think that if we want to regain the trust and support of our parents, which seems to be very severed right now, we need to be listening. We should not be telling them. They need to be a part of they know the problems that are occurring, and they need to be part of the solution. I actually advocate to have more open forums where there can be open communication. I almost find it insulting that when you have a speaker and they're talking from their heart, they're very passionate, whether we agree with them or not, and you sit there and with kind of a blank stare. And I realize it's policy, I realize it's a meeting, but we need to be able to be interacting with these people. They need to feel heard. And so, yes, I do not think there should be any minimum.
Demonstration, please.
There should be no minimum. As many parents that have a concern should voice a concern.
Okay, thank you. Tina?
She's a hard one to follow.
Do your best.
I had to agree because having 5 kids, I normally do not get out of the house on time when I want to leave to get to some meeting, to get to somewhere. And if I'm not there before other parents, I don't even get a chance to speak. I've done it, I've been there, I've been at other meetings. And it's almost like if you're not there in a timely, like an hour prior, then you're not first in line, or you don't get to the 10 spot. And it's really hard when you never get there on time. And I don't mean literally, I mean figuratively, but whichever way you want to take it. I hardly ever seem to get in that 10 spot ever, and I've been trying to do it for years. And it really sucks. It's really hard for a parent to be interactive or to be heard or to have any kind of a relationship with the board or with the teachers or the staff or anything outside at particular meetings if I can't get there 3 hours before there because I have kids to take care of, because I have other things to do. Not that anyone else has nothing to do, but I'm just saying. I just want to clarify, I don't mean that.
Thank you. Camille?
Open mouth insert.
I want to make sure that I address both parts of your question, and I'm actually going to address the second part first, which is about whether or not we agree with engaging in a Q&A format. I do not. And the reason for that is because the board is a collective entity. It's not any individual person. And so if the individual speaks in response to a question in real time, then they could say something that the collective board is not in agreement with. And so you don't have the opportunity to do that, and that's not the purpose of a business meeting. There are other opportunities that could be put into play as forums and other things like that to have a Q&A format, but that particular business meeting is not operated in that way. And then to the question of would I remove the 10-person limit, I would consider removing the 10-person limit as a function of a conversation and figuring out what was best for how to move forward. I would not remove it as a response to a bullying tactic that says, you know, just because this thing is I'm not agreeable to this thing, I'm going to argue about this thing, I'm going to rebel rouse and create a lot of scrutiny over this thing. So yes, I would support it, but as a function of a conversation to get to a place that is a more viable place. When in honesty, in attending board meetings over the last several years, as I started attending them a year and a half before I ever chose to run, there are most often are not 10 people there to give public comment. If you look back through, you don't see that. So yes, I'd be willing to, but you know, under the right circumstances.
Thank you. Joseph?
All right, so as far as removing the 10-person limit, absolutely we need to remove it. I understand it's a business meeting. However, the Board of Education, our elected officials, are responsible to the citizens which elect us, so we need to hear all of them out. As far as starting meetings after 6 p.m., absolutely, I think they all should start after 6 p.m. By large majority, this county is a bedroom community. Most people have a 45-hour commute to get home every night, to try to get home by 3:30 or to get to a meeting before 3:30 down here. If you work up in DC, it's next to impossible. You got to carve out a whole portion of your day for that. And as far as a forum or Q&A, I understand the concerns with, you know, doing that at the business meeting, doing it outside of a business meeting and having Q&A where people can engage. Absolutely. We need to talk to the community more, get their input. You know, the board is elected. They should be answerable to the citizens. That's the entire point. So yes, I would support that.
Thank you. Tracy?
Yes, I agree that the public comment in the school board meeting is not designed as a conversation. As a matter of fact, if you get elected to school board, the first thing the school attorney is going to say to you is don't engage in public comment because you're going to get yourself in trouble. So that piece of it, we can't do Q&A there, but I would be open to doing something similar to the big conversations where we bring together the community to discuss questions of concern. And we did that many years ago. It was through the Maryland Association of Boards of Education. It was called What Counts, and we started planning it at Calvert High School, but it got so big we had to move it to Huntingtown High School. This was before Calvert High School was expanded. And it was amazing. There was just, the community was there were tables for everyone to sit around, and there was kind of a constructive conversation at each table, and at the end of the night, the ideas from each table were posted on the walls, and people walked around and they put stickers of the things they liked, the things that they thought would be really good for our school system. So that kind of community engagement, I would love to bring that back. Again, COVID damaged so many things, but we can rebuild those things and do it better. And with regards to the 10-person limit, I would consider it, but I would put some control on it to say, but you can only comment on things that we're discussing as part of our meeting. If you are coming to speak to a school board meeting and you're bringing up things the school board isn't addressing or can't address, I'm sorry, that's a waste of everyone's time.
Thank you. Jana?
So again, I think there's a big misconception about what school boards can and cannot do, especially local boards. So I don't necessarily agree with Mrs. McGuire's statement. I think we have an obligation to hear all of what our community members have to say, but I also think we have an obligation to educate them. I would certainly encourage and be in favor of removing that 10-person speaking limit. It doesn't have to be 100, but I do think that if there's a majority that shows up and they have the same thing to say, it may warrant further discussion as a school board or with the superintendent. I think I would not be in favor of Q&A during a business meeting because it is just that, as a business meeting, but I do think that interaction and community engagement outside of that business meeting would be a wonderful opportunity for maybe parents and students and teachers to feel heard in another capacity. And I certainly think that meetings after 6 p.m., although we all have lots of running around to do in personal lives, I totally get it. But I would hope that it would be an opportunity, and those of you who have served on the school board might prove me wrong, but it would be an opportunity for maybe more people to come and attend and be participatory in those meetings or listen and hear, especially students or even teachers who cannot make it at a 3:30 time frame. Thank you.
Thank you. Damien?
So the question is, will I remove the 10-person rule and starting the meeting at 6:30? So I'm gonna hold my final answer to the end, but there's an agenda. When we have the Board of Education meeting, they have an agenda that of business items they need to cover. It's a tight schedule, and the whole purpose of that is to discuss things that the Board of Education have talked about behind closed doors, and that platform is designed for them to openly discuss what the decisions were on said topics. So the agenda is what the business meeting or the Board of Education meeting is all about. So how do you fix it? Town hall meetings. Town hall meetings gives an open environment where the parents and the teachers and the students can all talk about topics that are near and dear to their hearts, and they're able to get some dialogue. I definitely don't believe that opening shooting from the hip as a Board of Education member is the right thing, because there are some legal reasons why they cannot openly discuss things or make a decision right there on the floor. However, they can talk as a group, come up with an idea with the mics off, and answer that question, or at least attempt to give it some direction. But we need to make sure we stay away from this thing called a rabbit hole, where someone can take a discussion or a topic and drive that thing 3 hours down the road. So to finally answer my question, will I remove the 10-person rule? No, I would not. Will I start meetings at 6:30? Will I begin to start meetings at 6:30? Is that the second
Yes,
part?
time.
Okay. Can I get my answer?
Thank you.
Okay.
Finish your sentence, not the answer. Scott,
Will I remove the 10-person limit? Absolutely, 100% yes. The parents are taxpayers. We work for them. They don't work for us. We work for them. Like I said, there's been hot topics coming up where they, like for example, the northern situation with the pizza activity, with the health, potential critical race theories. Parents need to be heard to keep politics out of school. We work for them, and to say there's a limit of 10 and then shut the meeting down and nobody could be heard, that's unacceptable. So that's my answer. Absolutely, parents need to be heard. Doesn't matter to me what time it starts, as long as we have advance notice. But if you pay taxes, your kids go to this school system, the parents need to be heard.
Okay, thank you. Scott?
So as far as starting the meeting at 6 or after 6 o'clock, that honestly, I would support it, although it would be rough. I typically like to go to bed by 6:30. But I would be in favor of that. As far as the 10-person limit, I would be in favor of removing the 10-person limit, but first I'd like to understand why there are so many parents that want to address the school board, outside of the obvious that they're concerned about their children's education. I feel like there should be more of a back and forth dialogue with the community at large that has elected us as school board members, so that we are held accountable to you, the taxpayers and voters. So if there is a way that we can legally have a back and forth, either through emails or whatnot, I think that way our lawyers could vet what we're saying. I think the more transparent communication between the community and the school board will lessen the need for that. Also, a bi-monthly town hall meeting where there is like just an open forum for the community to come and voice their concerns, so that we have something to think about when we receive their emails, so we can have a formed consensus as a response.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Dave, you're up.
So the fourth question will start with you, Christina. What is your plan to protect the rights and safety of all students, including the LGBTQ plus youth of Calvert County Public Schools?
Every child, regardless of their background, deserves education, justice, and equitable access to opportunities, resources, and supports. This topic is near and dear to my heart. So I think the safety is number one for both teaching staff, the administration, and the students in the schools. Calvert County currently says it has a zero bullying policy. And the safety goes along with that zero bullying policy. My kids, not only for the LGBTQ community, but for the special needs community, and then one that's within both, has gotten bullied since middle school, and not much has been done for him. So I think that the representation of them needs to be protected within the schools, but at the same time, I really don't know if it needs to be as bold and as loudly discussed within the classroom. I think that they need to be safe within the school. And I think they need to be supported. As a parent, I think that training and mental health capacities need to be an opportunity for them as well, a safe place within the schools.
Thank you. Camille.
So I think that we need to do everything that we can do to protect the rights and safety of all students, period. The law requires for public schools to provide a free and appropriate education to anyone that's within their school system. And I think we really need to hold the line of acceptance as the benchmark and not tolerance, because tolerance always breaks at some point. Your tolerance runs out at some point. But acceptance is allowing of the fact that there's going to be a lot of differences and variations between people. I think folks are able to practice whatever they want to do within their homes, within closed doors, or whatever they do at home. But within the school system, the public school system, you just don't have those abilities. You send your children to school knowing that there are people from all populations, ethnicities, cultures, abilities, sexualities, so on and so forth. There's different familial structures, and the school has to do what they can to be in acknowledgement of those and to give representation of those differences and variances for the students that are within their system. And that's really all I have to say about that. I mean, as far as keeping everybody safe, I think that we need to do what we can to educate the students, because typically the safety situations come from inside the building more often than they come from outside.
Thank you. Joseph.
The safety of all our students is absolutely paramount. Doesn't matter what capacity we're talking about. What we need to do is we need to support them. We need to have staff on board, whether it be counselors or other professionals as well as SROs, to keep everybody safe, and also give, with counselors, whether it be a guidance counselor or another type of mental health counselor, somebody that can help out and help that person. But the biggest thing is we need to teach our kids to be kind. My 10-year-old doesn't care what anybody is or professes to be. Just if you're a nice person, he wants to be your friend. So we just need to teach people to be kind, be accepting, and be open to everybody. School should be an absolutely safe space, and yes, we got to give everybody the opportunity to have a fair and equal education. So that's how we do it.
Thank you. Tracy?
So the question is sort of broad in the sense that we are being asked to make space for people whose lived experience might be different from ours. We don't understand. It's not part of our history. And we still can make space. There's plenty of space. I try every day to be a person who can make space. I am fairly certain that at my age and my experience, my lived experience is not most of y'all's. I just don't think it is. And that's okay. There's space for all of us. We don't have to feel constricted or threatened by people who are different. And so I fully support keeping all students safe, but in particular, looking out for those students who are most vulnerable. Thank you. I yield back my time.
Thank you. Jana?
So my lived experience is I have identical 12-year-old boys, so top that, everybody. I'm just kidding. I think that there's a number of things here. I teach my kids that when they walk into a room, I want them to see a person first. I don't want them to see a race. I don't want them to see a gender. I want them to see a human being. And I think that there can be healthy boundaries. We can identify healthy boundaries around curriculum that helps our children understand that we have to be respectful, that everybody has different families, that everybody has different experiences. Everybody doesn't look the same. Everybody doesn't act the same. So I think that that's a big part of it. I also feel like we can really take a look at our procedures as they're written and begin to understand and identify how easily or how easy it is to implement or follow those procedures. How are they applied in each school? Are they applied consistently, or are they written in a way that they cannot be applied consistently, even in terms of something like a disciplinary action or a suspension or expulsion or things like that. I think that I agree that it's important, increasing SRO presence. I'm a big proponent of that. I think that they are fantastic advocates and they build relationships with the students in the schools. And maybe there's an opportunity for them to kind of talk to students in a way that maybe administrators or parents or teachers really couldn't. So I think that all of those are ways to improve.
Thank you. Damien?
My plan to protect schools to include the LGBTQ plus community. I think that a school should be the safest place for all kids, all students, all teachers, because the biggest thing is this, regardless of their ethnicity, their culture, what they want to do, what they believe in, their religious preference, things of that nature, those are all should be respected because it's about people, it's about learning. The school environment is about educating our students. And I think one way, and I think one way to fix that in my plan is to increase training for teachers, how teachers should be able to interact with kids that are being disruptive or being bullying or treating someone unkind. Another thing, in that training, we should definitely increase our school resource officers. That way, they're walking around the school, and their presence is there. When there's a presence there, people tend not to do crazy things or do bad things to people. Another thing is, as we talk about bullying, we have to also talk about the topic of mental health. When people get bullied, they go into a space and they might do something to hurt themselves. Suicide is one thing that we should definitely get our hands around. Mental health is one thing we should get our hands around, and I think training with counselors is definitely something that we can do to make our schools that much safer for our kids, the teachers. Thank you.
Thank you. Scott Devine.
The role of the SRO is for legality purposes. You need more safety advocates. Like I said in my opening statement, all high schools should have 4. They have 2 now. You need 4 safety advocates in each high school and 1 in each middle school. Right now you have floaters. Also, teachers, you see something, say something. Hold the kids accountable. Kids need to be accountable. It starts at home when it comes to the bullying aspect. See something, say something. If parents aren't doing their job with, as far as bullying and making fun of somebody's race, gender, sexual preference, or whatever, they need to be held accountable. And when it's reported, they need to take action, not sweep it under the carpet, not say Johnny Sue won't do it anymore. You have to hold the students accountable to show that it's just not implemented rules. Students have a code of conduct they need to follow. And in there, it discusses discrimination and disrespect to somebody's gender and sexual preference. So it starts at home. And then security needs to do their job, walk around, engage school, walk around, management will walk around, be visible, engage in students. Because if you do your job walking around, engage the students, you're going to see bullying, you're going to see people being picked on, and that'll help solve that situation.
Thank you. Scott Fowler.
Could you repeat the question, please?
Yes.
Thank you.
What is your plan to protect the rights and safety of all students, including the LGBTQ plus youth of Calvert County Public Schools?
Okay, so first I would like to say that all the rights and the safety of all the students, no matter what their race, LGBTQ plus status, all of it should be treated the same. They're all children that need to be looked after and protected by us, the adults in the room. No one kid is more sensitive than the other unless they've gotten pushed into that place. I might be wrong, but I don't think that there's necessarily more physical bullying occurring now than when all of us went to school. I think the big elephant in the room that needs to be addressed is the social media aspect of bullying and the impact that has on student safety, because a lot of times that ends with them committing self-harm. I feel like this starts at home with the parents. They need to have a stronger hold of what their children are doing online, and it needs to extend into the schools. So if we, as the administrators in the school system, see something going on with the student in terms of their social media and people looking like they're getting picked on, they need to notify the parents so they can also come at it from both sides. It can't just be a one-pronged approach. It needs to be two. Thank you.
Thank you. And Lisa.
First, I just wanted to go back to the board meetings. When I said that we need to have more communication, I meant during a different forum, absolutely not during a meeting. As far as your question, kindness is modeled, and that's a huge piece. I can tell you that as in a classroom, if I had a little boy show up with a purple dress and pink fingernails, it wouldn't matter to me. And when children see the teacher accepting and loving of a child, children follow suit. They're watching, they learn from what you do, not what you say. So that's where it begins, just modeling the kind behavior. I can promise you that most teachers in this county want every single child to feel valued and accepted and supported. But I know it's not always happening, especially when you get to the middle school and high school levels. And that's where I agree. We need to have, I think the security resource officers, they are roaming. They are the eyes of the building. If administration is being told of an issue of a child that is being somehow threatened, that security officer is there to oversee things. You know, he can strategically place himself.
Thank you. Next question, we'll start with Camille. With regard to the anti-racism policy adopted by the Board of Education on December 10th, 2020, how would you address the racial stereotyping in the policy defined as, quote, white privilege, unquote, and what is your overall opinion on the policy?
Can you repeat that again, please?
With regard to the anti-racism policy adopted by the Board of Education on December 10th, 2020, how would you address the racial stereotyping in the policy defined as white privilege, and what is your overall opinion on the policy? Please keep comments down in the audience.
My overall view on the anti-racism policy is that I'm in support of it. I'm in support of making sure that it stays in place. If I am elected to be a board member, and I'm in support of finding ways to further strengthen it and action it into the community and into the school system. With regards to addressing the racial stereotype defined as white privilege that you discussed, I believe that terminology is descriptive of a behavior. I don't believe that it's quote unquote racially charged one way or another, but I do think it is describing a behavior that is understood by most people and if not can be clearly defined, and I don't see it as problematic as part of the language of the policy.
Okay, thank you. Joseph?
All right, as far as the term white privilege, it is racially charged. It specifically says white privilege. It implies that only white people can act as if they have privilege or oppress others. I don't agree with that. I don't think the policy as it currently stands is great. I think it could definitely be rewritten and bettered. It talks about equity, but the problem with equity, having an equal outcome, you have to treat people inequitably in order to force an equitable outcome. That's where the problem lies with that. We need to give everybody fair equity to opportunities and help all of them succeed, not force outcomes.
Thank you. Tracy?
I voted for it. Anti-racism begins with understanding that racism is not an interpersonal problem. Racism is about laws, bureaucracies, attitudes, inherited acceptance of a social order that says some people are more deserving of societal and economic goods than other people. If you see that, then you have to start to dismantle that. And if you're dismantling it, you are an anti-racist. Thank you. I yield back my time.
Thank you. Jana?
So white privilege is a racial stereotype. It is subjective. It's not objective. The term in and of itself is racist. I agree with Joseph. We really should focus on equitable resources, not equitable outcomes, because there are other factors that we cannot control, like socioeconomics. I do want to point out that there are some about that term white privilege that may feel very offended because they don't feel as though they had that. I don't think that it has a place in an anti-racism policy. I certainly believe that an anti-racism policy should be in place. I don't know that anybody in this room should disagree. If you do, we can talk after. But I do think that there needs to be an anti-racism, but I don't know that specifically calling out a race is an appropriate term for a policy like this.
Thank you. Damien?
In reference to anti-racism, I think we all are some kind of way of anti-racism. We are against racism. That's what it is. And being against racism, it causes division within cultures, within communities, and that division ultimately comes in towards hate for one another. White privilege, I believe that it's another type of privilege. You have cultural privilege, you have financial privilege, and those type of privileges are across the spectrum, regardless of culture, regardless of race, regardless of ethnicity, or same, or even the way one way of life. In the Marine Corps, 21 years in the Marine Corps, I've definitely seen my full spectrum of different types of cultures and races. My first roommate was a Puerto Rican. Raul Rodriguez. He came from the slums of South Carolina, and he showed me and went to his neighborhood where he grew up in. That's where his culture was. Another friend. I've met many guys that are white, and again, they've come from the slums of their neighborhood. So white privilege or any type of privilege, I think it has no place. And I think that when you have someone who has that mindset, it should definitely be questioned.
Thank
That's
you.
all I have.
Scott Devine?
Critical race theory by far is one of the most radical Marxist and racist ideologies that was introduced and approved by the current Board of Education. Policy statement of the Board of Education regarding anti-racism, which Daniel Curry himself supports, Marxist and racial, puts it to his teachers, and it uses stereotypes, terms such as white privilege to generalize people by skin color regardless of circumstances. In the policy statement, A, it says to acknowledge that personal and institutional racism have historic existence and continue in our schools. There's no evidence of racism in our school. To acknowledge and understand the concept of white privilege and its impact on achievement equality. There is no white privilege in our school system. I take offense to that. In the Board of Education anti-racism resolution, whereas they discuss George Floyd. This is where politics come into play. They bring up George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, and then it goes, whereas the Board of Education acknowledges racism exists in our school community, and they go on to talk about white supremacy. There's no white supremacy in Calvert County. I take offense to that. I'm opposed to it. It needs to come out. What we're doing is we're dividing our kids. We're pitting our kids on each other. The white kids are feeling, I'm white privilege. You're sending the wrong message. These kids should be looking at color. These kids are going, you should be looking at somebody as an individual. What's in your heart, not your skin color. And what you're doing is you're pitting people against, with this racist stuff. White privilege and white supremacy is racist. It's not occurring. Now,
Your time has ended. Your time has ended, and you've gone to 2 sentences.
Yes,
Thank you. Scott Fowler?
Can you repeat the question, please?
Sure.
Thank you.
With regard to the anti-racism policy adopted by the Board of Education on December 10th, 2020, how would you address the racial stereotyping in the policy defined as white privilege? And what is your overall opinion on the policy?
So I would say that white privilege as written into a policy is extremely divisive and has no place inside of the Board of Education set of policies. In my opinion, when you call one group of people based on their race privileged over another, you're then saying another group is disadvantaged. And when you're telling children this, you're setting them up for failure, because the kids that are going to think that they're privileged will think they don't have to try because I just exist, I have this skin color, I'm going to do great. And then the kids that don't think there's no point in me even attempting this game because the deck is stacked against me. I feel like what that type of language is inferring is that their goal is, their solution to past racism is current racism. That does not make sense. You can't fix the sins of the past by sins of the present and sins of the future. We just, as a group, it is best to acknowledge our history, learn our history, but not repeat our history. Thank you.
Thank you. Lisa?
All right. There are good things in the policy that are beneficial, and I'm going to give you some examples. Racism has no place in our schools. Of course not. We must protect the constitutional rights of each person who attends or works in our county. Absolutely. We will not tolerate value structures and behaviors that perpetuate systemic racism. That's what we want. No one's going to argue those things. The one I have an issue with is that discipline processes to increase racial disparities and discipline and suspension for students of color and marginalized groups shall be eliminated. What this means is any outcome differences between races is proof of racism. Now I'm going to give you an example of how that would apply. Let's suppose, in honor of my winning the next seat to the Board of Education, they open a school that allows 100 children. 90 are white and 10 are black, or minorities. If we have a wonderful year with 99 angels, but one child who we've put in interventions, and we've brought in mentors, and we brought in behavioral specialists, and we've done everything that we could possibly do, and that child does something completely unacceptable, and it happens to be a minority child, and that child is suspended, and then, we proceed. At the end of the year, I will be out of compliance because I would then would have had to assign 9 white children to suspend in order to keep that percentage basis. That's outrageous.
I'm sorry, time
And that's
is-
why
your
we're
time
having
has
behavior
ended.
issues.
Thank you. Tina? You got to follow her again.
I know. I know. You're doing great. I know. Thanks. Okay, I'm gonna make it short and sweet. I believe that there should be an anti-racism policy, but I, like Joseph, agree that it should be written differently. I continue to say this, that every child, regardless of their background or their zip code, deserves education, justice, and equitable access to opportunities, resources, and supports. I'm going to keep on saying it because that's what we're here for.
Okay, thank you.
All right, question number 6. Joseph, you'll be starting with this one. What are you bringing to the board that speaks to growing diversity of our county and education?
Can you repeat it just so I make sure I wrote it down correctly?
What are you bringing to the board that speaks to growing diversity of our county and education?
Okay. Not quite sure what, as the Board of Education, I can do to bring diversity to the county as a whole. Or also bring diversity to our education outside of bringing in different people that can speak to our students and to our staff about their stories, their lives, whether it be an immigrant or anybody else. They can talk about how they ended up here, what their involvement is, what their views are, what their experiences are. I don't have all the answers for that one, to be quite honest with you. And I'll be the first to tell you I don't have any answers, but it's something I can research and figure out a better answer to. So I'll yield back the rest of my time.
Thank you. Tracy?
So if I understand the question, we are seeing more diversity in our county, and how should the school system respond to that? If I've understood it correctly. Again, I think a world-class school system is the answer to all of that. We have students who feel welcome. They believe the school belongs to them as much as anybody. They're surrounded by adults who believe in them and support them as they learn to do and be their best. We attract teachers who want to teach here because they are supported by their administrators, they have professional autonomy, they are well compensated, and we have a back office operations, just as one way to think about it, that just runs seamlessly, that there's no friction. And so that's the goal, and whether that is a response to diversity, I don't know, but I think it's what I would want no matter what the response was to. Thank you. I used up my time.
Thank you. Jana?
So I have 4 school-aged children currently enrolled in Calvert County Public Schools. So I think that that in and of itself yields to an opportunity to invest in diversity in this school system, an opportunity to talk to them, to talk to other parents, to teachers in the community, because we are kind of on the same playing field, if you will. So I get to hear lots of things, good and bad, but lots of things. I think that cultivating relationships in elementary school and all the way through high school, encouraging children to be good to one another and to just respect somebody and be their friend. And I think encouraging participation and providing necessary resources to children that may not necessarily feel comfortable or may not have the money or opportunity, I think would be also an awesome way to grow diversity in this county. Thank you.
Thank you. Damien?
So what do I bring to the table? Half of my adult life, 21 years of it, was put towards the Marine Corps, where I dealt with all kinds of different cultures. Grown adults, 18-year-olds and older, from any culture you can think of, I dealt with it personally. Can I get my time back? Just saying. Just saying.
No, it's an Amber Alert.
Oh. Just saying.
It's in Westminster, it's in Westminster.
I gotta get me a fresh 90. Gotcha. Everybody get their alarms turned off.
Wow.
If that's the only excitement we have this evening, I call that a win. Okay?
Yeah.
That's all I'm gonna say.
So, timekeepers, how would you like to proceed?
I mean, I'm fine with him starting all over.
Okay, Damon, would you like me to read the question again?
No, I got it.
Okay.
Definitely my wisdom. 21 years in the Marine Corps, I've definitely dealt with all kinds of different cultures, different types of people, different ethnicities, different ways of living. And I dealt with, I think, in the most professional way. The Marine Corps has a very hard standard on how to maintain discipline and order within the ranks. So that's what I bring, my wisdom. Understanding different cultures is something else I can bring to the table to the board members, because now I can yield to them my experiences. You know, one of my experiences I can definitely talk about is when I was over in the Middle East. Middle East is like this. I don't give a care what you just ate. If you just ate a meal, guess what? In the Middle Eastern, more specifically Pakistan, he sits you down and say, hey, we want to give you a meal, we want to feed you, whatever the case may be. Your belly can be full as I don't know what, but guess what? You better sit down and eat that meal, because that's called respect. So that's something that I can bring to the table, my wisdom, my experience, my worldwide experience on how to understand different cultures and different types of people. Thank you.
Thank you. Scott Devine.
What I could bring to the table, referring to diversity, is treating people with dignity and respect. Not looking at a person for their color of their skin, their sex or gender. Treat people with dignity and respect. Picking the best person for the job, following law, not being discriminative, lead by example. If you treat people with dignity and respect, communication is a two-way street. Take off the blinders. You know, look at the individual as an individual, not a color, not a ethnic or whatever. Treat people with dignity and respect, and follow the law. Like when it comes to hiring practices, promotional practices, pick the best person for the job, regardless what they're, as long as you treat people with dignity and respect, and you're even with everybody. Yep.
Thank you. Scott Fowler.
So as far as bringing diversity and cultural change to the board, I'm not sure what I can bring. I grew up here. Like, I'm from here, so I'm pretty sure I'm not bringing too much change myself. But like, in all seriousness, as long as students are being educated and they're safe and they're being taught all the basics that they need to help carry them through life, both in a educational standpoint and also like an educational standpoint, sorry, and a way that makes them accepting of people of all creeds, cultures, races. Like, to be honest, as the community diversifies in terms of culture, the students are going to be the ones that are teaching each other, because they're going to be the ones interacting with people of different races, cultural backgrounds, and they're going to have an experience that is only going to improve over time with more people coming to the county. Thank you.
Lisa.
I know one of the things that they're trying to do is to bring more minorities into our system. And that's good and bad, because I would love to see a rainbow in the hallway and in the classroom. We should have every race represented. That would be wonderful. I mean, we can't force it, though. When it comes to the hiring practice, I'm not really interested in the color of skin. I want the best qualified teachers hired in this county. So that's where it gets kind of tricky with the hiring process. I know within the classroom, we did lots of cultural diversity kinds of activities, just having books that represented different ethnic groups. During the holidays, we used to rotate to, one class would focus on one culture, and we would rotate to each other's classrooms. So, I mean, we can bring it into the schools, but we can't force it. It comes down to who's applying to our school. We can try to recruit people, but, I don't care if you have 10 diverse, minorities apply. If they're not the highest qualified people, I would prefer not to hire them. I want the best representation, the best qualified teacher in our building. So I'm sure we could get some, though.
Thank you. Christina?
Can you repeat that question?
I can.
Please.
What are you bringing to the board that speaks to growing diversity of our county and education?
Okay. Honestly, growing up here and graduating from the Calvert County Public School High School, and we moved away and then moved back here because I love it here. I think that the diversity is already, I think it's already diverse. I think that there's a lot of diversity here already. I think that the buildings, the entire county is so different from 30 years ago when I was in elementary school just for my kids. I think that it's already diverse. And I don't know what I can bring to the table for diversity. I just want the needs of every child to be thought about and understood, that, there isn't a one-size-fits-all. We are diverse. And our kids know that they are different, and they're all special, and they're all unique, and they're all amazing, just the way they are. So,
Thank you.
I think that's it.
Camille?
I'm going to answer this question on a couple of levels. First, something that I believe I bring is an ability to educate and collaborate, and a set of skills that is complementary to the skills that already exist on the board, because if we get more of the same skill set, then that changes the diversity of thought within the board itself. Additionally, being that I've worked in human resources for 20 years, the word diversity just drives me nuts, because the typical shift with that word is to go towards racial and ethnic, and you need to be describing what you're trying to be diverse about. So in that, my response is not going to be about race. It's actually going to be about neurodiversity, which I'm a parent of an autistic child. Not only am I a parent, I'm also an advocate. I've gone through numerous trainings, both those that are provided for free and those that have had to be paid for, so that I can help other parents advocate in IEP meetings and other forums. I'm a current standing board member for the Parents' Place of Maryland. I'm also, as I said before, on the CCAC and CAC, because I'm always trying to help others understand that when they think about diversity, they need to go beyond the construct of just race, unless that's what they're focusing on at the time, such as bringing more minority students or minority teachers into the school system. That is a specific apparatus within diversity, and I think sometimes people use the word diversity because they have inability or fear to say, well, we want more black people, we want more Asian people, we want more this or that, and you need to be prescriptive.
Thank you. This next question, we start with Tracy. What are your areas of concern regarding student achievement in your district?
So I'm concerned with the learning loss that happened during COVID. I think for most students, remote learning wasn't great. It wasn't great for teachers or staff either. It was hard for everyone. And so we have to do a lot of catch-up to help students get to where they need to be. So there are standards of education, and when you graduate from second grade, these are the things that you should be able to know, do, and understand. And we've lost some of that. So second graders graduating to third grade this spring, they may not be ready because they couldn't get ready. So I feel like learning loss is something that needs to be addressed, and it's going to take resources. And I think that there are resources available to expand the school day in some ways to help students who need it, and that's my concern. I yield back my time.
Sorry.
I'm sorry.
Y'all
I
are moving so
apologize.
fast. We were trying to decide what, y'all are doing great. Sorry.
Do you want me to just talk fast so I can finish Tracy's time, or are we good?
No, we got your time started.
Okay.
You're good.
So I don't know that there are areas of concern specifically to my district, and these are at-large seats, so I think this question may apply to the entire county. Certainly learning loss, as Ms. McGuire indicated, because of virtual learning and because of COVID. That's a big one. I also have a concern about teaching to test instead of teaching to really comprehend or understand things. Thank you.
Damien?
Thank you. One of my concerns, if you go back to reading, writing, and arithmetic. One of the things my wife and I did as soon as we came out of the last school year was we put our kids in, I'm not going to name drop any LLCs, but we put them in an environment where the specific goal was to increase their math functionality. I think for programs like that would definitely help with again, supporting the reading, writing, and arithmetic. Reading clubs, public speaking, building the confidence of the kids. That's one thing that I think that we should, that I want to have as one of my concerns. And lastly, practical thinking, common sense thinking. That also helps the child out with trying to understand. These are all programs that will definitely be done or achieved after hours. I'm not too crazy about extending the school hours, even though when we were stationed in Japan, they went to school year round. But I think that you go back to those basics of reading, writing, and arithmetic, and the parents taking the initiative to send their kids out to outside of the public school system learning environments is definitely going to be something that is my concern. How do we do that? I think that is, again, back to relationship with the commissioners. There should be, we can figure out how we can have what's the word I'm looking for? Coupons, that's not the word I'm looking for. Somehow decrease the value of the cost of those outside programs for the kids. Thank you.
Thank you.
My area of concern for student achievement is the decline of education due to COVID-19. Unfortunately, this current school board we have now voted, caved into peer pressure to the teachers union to keep these kids virtual learning out of the classroom. When Governor Hogan said kids could come back, Calvert County wasn't ready. It starts at the top, the superintendent. Who's in charge of the superintendent? The Board of Education. These kids were at home for months, and I was listening to the stuff that my daughter was being taught. You have one member on the school board that has a child that goes to the school. The rest of the board members have no direct vested interest. One of the school board members who voted against our kids to stay at home and mask up, son went to a private school in Prince George's County. That's a fact. I want to make sound decisions for the best of the students because I have a vested interest. Like I said, college, they're not taking SAT scores because of the decline of education. That's a fact. My daughter's a junior, and she says, Dad, I'm going to take the SAT, but there's no need for it because colleges, because of COVID, the decline of students' education. And the little kids, my youngest is in middle school. It's going to affect her for the rest of their life because they're almost 2 years behind in education. You can't learn at home on a computer. And then when you go to school, you have a mask on where you can't interact and see folks' face. Thank you.
Thank you. Scott?
So I would say, I guess, the primary concern of for achievement, I'm not terribly familiar with like current test scores and where the county sits in terms of percentile rankings and stuff like that, as opposed to other counties in both the area and nationally. But I guess my general answer would always be like encouraging STEM fields, and like the core education that they're going to need to help them like throughout life, both in a professional and personal level. The basics that I'm sorry, I forgot your name. Down there was talking about reading, writing, and Damien. Sorry, reading, writing, and arithmetic is the bedrock that the education needs to be laid on, and so that really needs to be hammered home and done well. Aside from that, I feel like a hard pill for everyone to swallow, but really needs to be done, is understand that college isn't necessarily for everybody. The idea of going into the vocational fields is a tremendous field and very well paying and great careers. I feel like there shouldn't be a stigma for students that use the Calvert Career Center or CTA now. Yeah, I'm old, so I don't know the new names. But I feel like that should be highly encouraged. The programs they have there are terrific. They have great teachers, and we should encourage them to utilize it.
Thank you. Lisa?
Could you repeat that question again?
What are your areas of concern regarding student achievement in your district?
Student achievement, okay. My concern would be the achievement gap. And I feel like we are not meeting the needs of our high-performing students. I think the bar has been lowered for them. When you're giving 50% for not turning anything in, that's creating huge issues. The only way we're going to achieve the gap from the lower end is by retaining the most highly qualified teachers. Those teachers have had years of experience in professional development, which gives them advantages and extra strategies and tools to know how to challenge the highest and support the low. So keeping qualified teachers is a huge piece of that. Professional development is another way that we get teachers to be qualified to meet both ends of the spectrum and everything in between. But the professional development needs to be relevant and differentiated to our teachers' needs. The last thing I had written was, I'm concerned about this human sexuality coming in and taking away from the basic core subjects of reading, writing, math.
I'm sorry your time has expired. Thank you.
All right.
Tina?
Sorry. Could you say it one more time for me, please?
What are your areas of concern regarding student achievement in your district?
Okay. As a parent of special needs kids, I have been dealing with learning loss and my children being behind for years without them catching up. And when the pandemic hit, the majority of my friends who had neurotypical kids, they felt what I've been feeling for years in special education. Our kids who are special ed, they've been struggling just to keep their head above water. They have been paddling just to keep their head afloat for years, trying to read, write, and do math. And that has been the basic of what my argument at IEP meetings has been for years. My sixth grader right now was passed through 4th and 5th grade, and 3rd and 2nd. Yes, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade, because the first 3 quarters, he got 50%. And this year alone, he no longer has to do homework. They've taken homework completely off of his regimen. And so it's not teaching my kid anything by not doing homework. I think that the mental health impact also affects music and arts. So the creativity of your mind with the mental health impact that this pandemic has hit, there are no social events anymore. They were taken away. So we're just now trying to get back into those social groups that were literally, the rug was pulled out from underneath of us. So we're just trying to get our foot in the door again.
Okay, thank you. Camille?
I agree with a lot of what has been said as far as areas concerned regarding student achievement. I agree with learning loss being an issue, closing the achievement gap being an issue, teaching to test versus teaching each individual for what they can achieve and excel in. And I believe in that specifically with regards to special needs students, because there is an interesting dynamic with regards to what the definition is that gets them to matriculate versus neurotypical students. And so having parents at ages 2, 3, 4 determining whether or not their students can be diploma ready when you don't really know what their progress is going to be, or you're not really teaching towards that, is a significant area of concern for me. I also have concern around not giving appropriate energy and resources to the outliers, which would both be special needs as well as gifted and talented, because they have some lacking within our school system as well. And again, in the realm of teacher support, I also believe that a student achievement need is in a more individualized education, but you can't get that without reducing the size of the classes and allowing teachers to focus on their students as individuals and not as consortiums of, 20 to 30 to 40 kids. I think the last thing I'll say about that is addressing the needs of students that are impacting their ability to learn outside of actual learning.
Thank you. Joseph?
All right, so areas of concern regarding student achievement in our district. As I think Jana mentioned, this is both seats are at large, so the districts really are relevant, but I think it's stuff's pretty much countywide. Obviously, COVID wrecked everything, and we ended up with a ton of learning loss with our kids. We all hated it, but we can't let it happen again, but we also can't bemoan the fact that we lose sight of how we fix it. We need to figure out what resources are needed and what can be done to overcome it and help the kids and recover that learning loss. And the best way to do that would be talking to the teachers and getting their input and getting their buy-in to do that. Some of that remote was terrible. I've got a nephew who really struggled from it. Kindergarten, first and second grade, all on a computer doesn't work for reading. We gotta make sure we don't lose our AP classes. As she mentioned, outliers on both ends of the spectrum. We gotta make sure they're taken care of. We gotta meet the kids where they are and figure out the best need or the best way to educate each of those children to bring them up, because each one's unique. There is learning loss, and we just gotta figure out the best way to combat it, and teachers will be the key to do that. Thank you.
Thank you. Jana, we'll start question number 8 with you. Do you support the instruction of gender fluidity or gender theory concept based on subjective emotions to students in CCPS?
Not even going to write it down. No, I don't. I think that I support educating children when it's age appropriate about gender. I also support educating children about the importance of treating everybody respectfully and everyone who is different. But I do think that there need to be boundaries surrounding the curriculum, if you will, in our school system.
Thank you. Damien.
So, I knew this was going to happen. So, here's my perspective on that. Educating our kids as parents on different types of lifestyles, different types of house and family build construct is important, and I think that's something that should be done within the household. If it teaching children gender fluidity within the school system, I think that it should be. Let's face it. You can't drive until you're 21 years old. Or I'm sorry. 21 years old. You can't buy cigarettes until you're 18. The brain is not developed to the point of being that child being able to absorb the different levels that's being taught to them as reference to their gender fluidity. So, again, going back to reading, writing, and arithmetic, I believe that's where we're failing as across the board without identifying one person. We're failing because our schools and our teachers and our students are failing to the point of when they move out of when our students graduate, they're not able to function. They're not able to. I mean, my wife and I went to Readers the other day, and the meal it came up to $18.20. My wife gave him $20.20, and the gentleman looked at my wife confused because he didn't know how to do the small math on that. So again. We need to go back to reading, writing, and arithmetic.
Thank you. Scott Devine.
First and foremost, I'm a Christian. I believe in God. There's two genders. You're either born a boy with a penis or a girl with a vagina. Maryland, the state of Maryland, I don't think it's filtered down here to Calvert County yet, came out with a comprehensive framework. And we have two Calvert County individuals that were contributors and reviewers. I have documentation. Gender identity, kindergartens. They want to teach kindergartners a range of ways to identify and express their gender. These are kindergartners. You need to learn how to distinguish shapes, colors, your ABCs. Not to force this gender, to each his own. If I wanted to identify myself as Scottina, that's my personal choice. You shouldn't have to shove it down kids' throat. Let them make their own decision. For example, girls' sports. My daughter plays girls' sports. I don't want a boy that wakes up one day and says, "Oh, I'm a girl," and wants to play on my girls' lacrosse or soccer team or basketball team. I respect, God made Adam and Eve. You have either born with a penis or a vagina. You can't be born with a penis and be called a female. So I respect everybody's opinion and what they want to be identified as, but I don't want it to be shoved down my kid's throat. My two girls are girls. I don't need anybody to tell them anything different and make them express themselves any other way.
Thank you. Scott Fowler.
Okay, so let me be very clear about this. Under no circumstances should the school be educating kindergartners and very young elementary school students about gender fluidity. Like, that should not occur. If a child has a question about something of that nature, it's a very simple answer. If they ask their teacher, the teacher should simply say, "That's a very interesting question. You should talk with your parents about that." It is not the school system's job to indoctrinate anyone else's kids into any type of ideology, whether it be a traditional ideology or a new, different ideology. It's highly inappropriate, and I cannot stress how much I am against that. Thank you.
Thank you. Lisa.
I acknowledge that there are children with gender confusion, and these topics need to be discussed at some point when children are developmentally and emotionally equipped. But we should not confuse all children in the name of equity. I'm going to go to the kindergarten standard. One of their standards in kindergarten recognize it is important to treat people of all gender identities and expressions with dignity and respect. Well, the debate's not whether we should be treating everyone with dignity and respect. All people should be treated with dignity and respect. The debate is on whether the school should be teaching children about sexual preferences or gender identity. Sex is biological. Gender is expressive. At the primary level, children should be taught there are two genders. Young children do not need to be confused. The other standard I had an issue with in kindergarten is recognize a range of ways people identify and express their gender. In order to recognize this, children would have to use the appropriate pronouns. Therefore, a teacher would be required to teach that there are more than two genders. This is too confusing for young children. In addition, this creates divisiveness between schools and families. It's a parent's job to teach life issues. Schools are to educate, not to teach values and standards.
Thank you. Christina.
Okay. All right. I'm gonna repeat. I'm gonna sound like a broken record. But every child, regardless of their background, deserves education, justice, and equitable access to opportunities, resources, and supports, which means there are two genders. The teachers and the staff and the faculty and the administration have a job to do. Teach the curriculum that is put upon them to do for our children. When it comes to gender roles or gender fluidity or gender and sex, it begins at home. My children wear clothes. My boys are allowed to wear whatever they want. Clothes do not make the gender or the sexuality. My boys have painted nails before. They have colored hair. My girls wear boy shorts. Clothes are clothes. And regardless of what a child comes wearing to school, safety and protection is key. Education is number one. That's how I see it.
Thank you. Camille?
I'm surprised this hasn't been said. Can you repeat the question, please?
Yes.
Make sure I understood the whole question.
Do you support the instruction of gender fluidity or gender theory concept based on subjective emotions to students in CCPS?
So my answer to that question is I can't answer that question. It's way too broad. I've heard people talking about what can and can't or should and shouldn't happen in kindergarten, but then what does that say for high school? Then what does that say for middle school? So I think that what instruction is given should be age appropriate and should fit. I do think it should come from an education construct, which means, you know, letting them know the facts of what exists in the world that they're going to be functioning in. Whether or not it should dip into, you know, how people feel about it and things like that, I'm not sure, because that's also confusing. You know, I hear people say, you know, the parents should teach and that, you know, the teachers aren't there to teach values and whatnot, but contradicting to that, people say that kindness is modeled and that you learn how to be kind and be respectful and all of these other things from teachers. So it's like, which do you want them to do or not do based on whatever the subject matter is? So my answer to the question is I can't fully answer the question because I don't know specifically what realm of the student population we're referring to, which would determine what my level of appropriateness is for that topic.
Thank you. Joseph?
Can you repeat the question one more time, please?
Yes. Do you support the instruction of gender fluidity or gender theory concept based on subjective emotions to students in CCPS?
Short answer is no. The longer answer is there's two genders. Humans are not the first mammal that all of a sudden in the last 10 years evolved into more than two sexes. So there's only two. However, we got to teach all our kids to be accepting and love everybody. We got to teach anything that has to do with sexuality needs to be taught from a science-based standpoint, and what are the facts. Not necessarily the world that we're living in, whether the world they live in or not, facts are facts. But you should definitely not be teaching anybody K through 3 anything of any type of gender whatsoever.
Thank you. Tracy?
I struggle with the question too because I don't know if it's assuming facts, not an evidence, regarding what's taught in schools. But I would say that I do think human sexuality is complex. I support teaching the facts of sexuality and human reproduction. The purpose of sex education is student safety. We want our young people to know that their sex drive is part of their humanity, that they have bodily autonomy, and that being sexually active without protection is a really high-risk activity. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, this question number 9 goes first to Damien. What is your specialty that you are bringing to the table, such as policy writing and implementation, budgets, childhood development, or others?
So, what is my specialty? Again, I have to revert back to my adult life of the Marine Corps. Ingenuity is something that I believe is a specialty that I possess when it talks more towards entrepreneurship. Being able to create an environment, create a curriculum where kids are able to express themselves in the entrepreneurship environment. I do understand that every child is not college-bound, military-bound, and the vocational piece is definitely something that should be entertained. I myself, at the age of 47 years old, I'm just getting to college, but that's neither here nor there. But the biggest piece is what I can bring as far as my specialty is being able to create an environment where kids not only do they learn a vocational program, but they also are being taught how to file for the EIN, how to establish their Dun and Bradstreet number so that when they do get out of high school, they're pretty much turnkey so that they learn how to either partner with the established business or even open up their own business. So entrepreneurship is something that I definitely want to push and definitely want to, I believe that's something that is a platform, if you will. Thank you.
Thank you. Scott?
As a retired captain, I've been an administrator since 2006. During my career, I've revised policy. We had budgets to buy equipment and stuff. So when it comes to policy, writing policy, advising, policy revisions. My specialty is, I'm a caring dad with kids in the school system. Kids are my passion. My specialty is looking out for their future, ensuring they have the best education, ensuring they're treated with dignity and respect, and ensuring there's no discrimination at on any level. Everybody's on the same page. I have integrity. I'm very direct. I'm transparent. I'm not a politician. I'm running for school board. I'm an involved, invested father. I'm very transparent. You're not going to hear a political answer. I'm very direct. Some of you see my posts on social media. I always have supporting documentation. If I put something in writing, like all my posts on social media, I have supporting documentation right here. I'm a factual individual. I dot my I's and cross my T's. When implementing policy, looking at budgets, I make sure I have all the information to make an informed decision. It's going to benefit the kids.
Thank you. The other Scott?
I'd say in terms of specialties or, what I'm bringing to the table, I guess I'd just kind of fall back on common sense. I'm pretty good at seeing things from an outside perspective, maybe a fresh set of eyes, somebody that hasn't been so immersed inside of the school system since I was a student in the school system. But also, I'm pretty good at looking at the same problem from multiple different angles to see how different people might try to either game the system or essentially take advantage of loopholes that may be left if we don't look at it from every angle. And that's it.
Okay. Thank you. Lisa?
Another Amber Alert, y'all.
It's an Amber Alert again.
Is it another one?
It's probably going to be the same one.
Same one. Okay.
I bring 26 years of experience in public education, and that is the most valuable resource that we need right now.
You can pause for a second. We'll start your time again in a second. Okay, you ready?
Okay. I know the positives positives as well as the negatives going on in the classroom. I've experienced the behavior issues. I've experienced the room clears. I've experienced the equity training that's going on. And my biggest goal in all of this is to educate parents, because a informed parent is a powerful parent. And we need to keep them aware of what's coming, of what's happening. As far as the Board of Ed, they deal with the budget policy and the overseeing the superintendent, the hiring and firing. I go beyond that. I know what's happening. I know what teachers need. I think we need. There's never been a more important time now than to know what teachers need, because we are losing them, and we are losing them fast. And as I said before, there is nothing more powerful than an experienced teacher. And that's not to criticize new teachers. We've all got to start somewhere. But when they have that experienced teacher as a mentor to help them and guide them, we can fix this achievement gap. But we've got to keep the experienced teachers, and we've got to listen to the problems that are happening. They are rarely ever asked.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Tina?
How can I go after that? Like.
You give up your time?
All right. I'm sorry. Can you repeat the question? I want to make sure that I answer this.
What is your specialty that you are bringing to the table, such as policy writing and implementation, budgets, childhood development, or any other concepts?
Okay. I bring a voice for the parents, for the teachers, for the staff. I seem to be the one person out of all of my friends who, I mean, there are people here that I went to school with that know me. I wear my heart on my sleeve, and you may not like what I have to say, but I'm the one person to say it, whether you like it or not. I kind of say what needs to be heard. It may not come out perfectly or correctly or politically correctly, but it's like a weight off of my shoulder and a lot of my friends' shoulders. I've developed a unique perspective, not only being a student that went through Calvert County Public Schools, who moved out of the county, moved back here to have children, to put them into the county. I have a perspective with the special ed. I have a perspective with the GATE program. I have a perspective with the upcoming college programs, the summer college programs, ESY, early childhood development, child finds. I mean, my 7-year-old has been through Calvert County Public Schools since he was 3 weeks old because I already lived it from my 12-year-old. I mean, I may not have the teaching experience, but I have a very unique experience, and I put my information out, and even if I don't win, call me and I'll help.
Thank you. Camille?
So I've tried to infuse different things about my skill set in a lot of the answers that I've given today. So you've heard me say that I've been working in human resources for over 20 years. I've been doing strategic operations. I build policy and procedure daily. I influence and implement shifts in culture. I manage change on a regular basis. I try to be an effective communicator, which I hope I'm displaying, but that effective communication spans over both verbal and nonverbal communication methods. But something that I want to mention in this 90 seconds that I don't know if my counterparts will mention is that a specialty that I bring is the ability to build relationships. And one of the relationships that I have been nurturing over the past couple of years is to be have a connective thread with the current board that sits. Because at the end of the day, any of us could win, but we're still one vote. And for anything to move within the board takes 3. So if you're not capable of collaborating and connecting with the people that are sitting there, regardless of whether or not you have the same opinions, differing opinions, or whatever, then you're not going to have much success on the board, and you'll just sit there for 4 years voicing those opinions and not getting anything done.
Okay, thank you. Have you?
As far as what I bring to the board, 2 biggest things I would say would be budgeting experience and problem solving. That's what I do every single day in my line of work. Got budgets for very complex problems, figure out how to work those budgets to solve the complex problem and build a successful project. Outside of that, it's thinking outside the box. I know one of the big concerns is also ties into the budgeting. Yeah, I talk very fast, I'm sorry, which also ties into the budgeting is the Kerwin. I know there's a lot of money that's going to be in there for all kinds of things. One of the things is for, I believe, athletics, but it's not for turf. But I actually think that's okay, because one thing we could possibly do with that money is start a program where the kids actually learn how to take care of the fields, as in turf management, and then that can prepare them for a possible future in going into turf management, taking care of ball fields, golf courses, things of that nature. So thinking outside the box, problem solving, and budget management.
Thank you. Tracy?
So I served on the school board for 12 years. I served as president and vice president. I earned the Maryland Association of Boards of Education Master Board Member designation by working on a bunch of projects and doing a lot of professional development. I think of the things that I did on the school board that I'm most proud of is elevating the student focus in contract negotiations, which doesn't sound like much, but if negotiations are all about the adults, and of course that's part of it, but if you don't think about students as you do that, and that's something that I did with our school board. I also established a superintendent evaluation process that was driven by goals set by the school board. We originally, when I first got on the board, we were doing rank the superintendent 1 through 5. And so there was no discussion. It was not a very effective evaluation tool, so I brought in a new one. I helped develop and pass the equity policy and made sure that the superintendent implemented it with a dedicated position and resources. To foster transparency in the budget process, we started talking about the budget in open session in October. It would be on the agenda for every meeting. We're going to talk about your priorities as a school board member, so the community could hear it, but so could the superintendent and his staff as they develop their proposed budget. And I mentioned earlier that I brought in the what counts conversation to the community. I would love to do something like that. Thank you.
Thank you. Jana?
So I think the biggest is that I'm a parent of 4 children currently enrolled in this school system. So I get to have a different perspective, unlike others who may not necessarily. Other experiences I have significant experience in project management, budget development, supervision, human resources management, knowledge of procurement and contracts, not only at the federal level but local levels of government. Camille stole my thunder about cultivating relationships, but that's okay. I love that one. And the ability to listen, to really listen and understand, and be able to respectfully maybe disagree, but understand that at some point, be able to identify that in some of the disagreement we may have a common goal, and to figure out how we can really have a conversation and sit down together and talk about those, and to be open-minded. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, ladies and gentlemen, those are all the questions we have time for this evening. We're going to go into a round of closing statements. We started the closing statements with Damien and moved this way. We'll start closing statements with Scott and move down the table that way.
I would just like to thank everybody for taking their time out, and thank my colleagues for the professionalism. It was very well organized. Thank you, Katie. Again, I'm a parent. That's my specialty. I have a vested interest, my kids. I just want the betterment for the kids. I want safe schools, positive learning environment, and the board needs divine intervention, D-E-V-I-N-E, divine intervention. Like I said, one thing about me, I'm very transparent and I'm very direct, no beating around the bush. Thank you for your time, I appreciate it.
Thank you. Scott.
So, what was the question now?
I was gonna read.
Once again, I'd like to thank everybody for coming out. Thank everybody who's tuning in and who's watching on their phones tomorrow. I think it's wonderful that there's so many other people that felt the call to serve the children of the community and everyone at large. And I hope if any one of us has said something that you agree with, I hope you can come out on July 19th and vote in the primary, and hopefully you will be represented well. Thank you.
Thank you. Lisa.
As a member of your school board, I want to open the lines of communication and be a catalyst for unity. My goal is to bring back the value of listening and understanding. My goal, I want to listen to all stakeholders, parents, teachers, students, and support staff. I will use common sense to find common ground and solutions to improve our children's education, because this campaign is about them. It is not about anyone sitting up here, and we cannot lose sight of that. Alone, I can make a difference. Together, we can make an impact. Let's remove the non-essential to make our children's education the absolute essential. Thank you for being here, and I would appreciate your vote on the 19th.
Thank you. Christina.
Okay, I wanted to say thank you for everyone coming out and giving us the opportunity to be here and show our opinions, our thoughts, our processes. I may not have the most experience. I mean, I really do have the passion for the kids. I have kids on all 3 ways And I have been a stay-at-home mom for 15 years, working on one income. And that's hard to do with having 5 kids and having 3 of them with special needs. I am not going to promise to be a miracle worker, but I will listen and I will take your consideration. And I worked really hard to be the best mom and to be the best parent and to be the best everything that I try to do. Like, my kids call me the perfectionist. Their room is never perfect enough because it's up to my standards. I expect progress. I expect progress in everything that I do, in every meeting that I have, and I just want to learn and be given a chance.
Thank you. Camille.
So I didn't pre-prepare my closing remark, and as I'm going into it, I feel like I kind of want to share, I guess, some elements that I haven't already shared about myself and get into a space. I want to thank Katie and Joan for timekeeping, and Katie for putting this together. I want to thank the moderators for moderating tonight. You know, daily I listen to the thoughts and feelings of others at work, and I try to bring into action the things that they request or they say that they need within their workplace. And my personal positions are just one of the parts of that conversation and not necessarily the whole conversation. And so that's something that I feel like I'll bring to the board, is listening to others regardless of, you know, what it is that you have to share, but to try to bring your piece of the conversation to the full conversation, whether that aligns with my personal thoughts or not. I'm a lover of Game of Thrones. If you look at my name, you'll understand why. And that is very indicative of some of the elements of my nature. And if you haven't seen it, that might be reason to go and look it up a little bit. But, you know, I've ever since my son was diagnosed and I started to get more connected to the board, I've wanted to sit in this seat, and that hasn't changed, and the needs of the system haven't changed. They've only amplified. And so I want to be a part of making sure that Calvert County Public School System stays a great system.
Thank you. Joseph.
Yeah, no, definitely want to thank Katie. You guys, both of you moderators, you guys did a fantastic job. Thanks for putting this on. It was great to get up here and talk with everybody. Learned a lot from actually each of you tonight. Reason I'm running is pretty simple. I'm a dad. I care. It's pretty much it. Need to get back to basics, back to fundamentals, whether that be rights, parental rights, student safety, as well as basics in education, making sure we're exceeding in education and making sure the kids and their education specifically are first and foremost and the biggest thing we do. So with that, hope I can get your vote on July 19th. Thank you.
Thank you. Tracy.
Thank you. So I want to start by thanking Katie. I don't know you. We met for the first time tonight. I got an email a few weeks ago that invited me to this candidate forum, and I'm like, whew, that's a lift, you know? But you have done an amazing job. You have found the right people for the roles, and I appreciate you doing this. Real life is so much better than social media.
Yeah. Right.
Right? If elected, I promise to be respectful of staff and their time, to take a hard vote instead of abstaining, to be a listener, problem solver, and advocate for parents, teachers, and students. I am committed to continuous improvement, educator excellence, and a world-class instruction for each student. And I ask for your vote on July 19th. Thank you.
Thank you. And Jana?
It's almost past my bedtime, so I'm going to talk fast. I am available anytime to speak. I do appreciate this opportunity, but I am available anytime. Like I said, if you want to come have a cup of coffee, if you want to send me an email, if you want to give me a call on the phone, I'm happy to have a conversation with you. Now, as I still will be when I'm elected. I also want to say thank you so much to Katie and Joan, and to Malcolm and David. And Malcolm, you might not remember me, but I attended the library event, and it was amazing. So I'm so happy to see you here again. That was really a great event. I know that you guys couldn't have done it without lots of folks in the background helping you get this done, especially the county commissioners, Calvert Broadcast, Melissa Goshorn, and others. So I appreciate the time. Have a good evening, everyone.
Thank you. And Damien.
So I'm the biggest critic of myself, like we all are. So I had to go back because I totally forgot and missed the question that was asked as far as what specialties I have coming to the table with the board. So I'm going to talk about two real quick: budget and policy. In the Marine Corps, I budget the 3.5 credit account, and I maintain the DoD standard of a 2% debt to balance ratio. Policies I wrote and helped write policies for the Marine Corps, ranging anywhere from the weight training and also for the evaluation program for the Marine Corps at large. So in my closing,
Sorry, that's not your time. Sorry. I was very
I was about to say, I was
engrossed into all
talking
of y'all.
fast.
Look, I failed on the last person at the last
Okay,
question.
well, can I get a
I'm doing
minute?
all right.
In closing, I want to thank Katie and the team. You all provided a good, safe environment for all of us. I was hesitant coming in, but now I'm here, and I think it was a really good opportunity and, again, a good, safe environment. My thing about coming to the board is once I'm elected, I'm fighting for the kids. I'm fighting for the teachers. That's my biggest thing. We had to continue to create a safe environment for the kids, a safe environment for teachers for them to learn and for teachers to teach. Last but not least, July 19th, you can vote for 4 of us up here. So 4 of us will go to the general election. So the primaries are very important. There's a lot of us up here, and only 4 of us can move forward. So I hope that I can get your vote and be one of those 4. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. That is the end of the evening. And for the sound guy over there, sir, will you let us know when we're off mic and all that?
I want to thank the audience for being respectful and following the ground rules. But I'm going to break one of the ground rules that we set. I would like for us to thank Katie Lips for putting this on and give her a round of applause. And I hope at least that each one of you learned at least something tonight to make you more of an intelligent voter when you go to the polls. Because what I really disdain is people voting and not knowing what they're voting for or who they're voting for. So I hope you gain some insight tonight to make an intelligent decision. And the 2022 primary election is on July the 19th, 10 weeks away. And let me encourage you, this is in July. Many people are on vacation. Many conventions are taking place. So get a mail-in ballot, fill that out, and mail it in if you're not going to be here the week of July the 19th. And early voting is from July the 7th through the 14th, from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. So remember that. Be blessed and go forth and vote intelligently. Thank you so much.